Hello, welcome to this hopefully short video on the new firmware and how to upload it to the modules there. So what I'm going to do this video with the assumption that you've already got the existing firmware on here. If you haven't and you've got a completely clean Mega or one with a standard MobiFlight firmware on it, then we're gonna end up sort of wiping it again anyway. So you can sort of follow this from both viewpoints, but the setup that you're going to see here is the standard config that's out, the original one, and the standard config for the module as well. So this is the state that most people will probably be in. But if it's brand new, then or you've got a standard module, then that's fine as well. You can follow along, but your displays will probably look a bit different. Right, I've changed the way that the system will update firmware, which will make it a lot easier for you going forward. If you have a module that consists of my LCD displays and other items as well, just make a backup of your config and then follow the merge tutorial to merge it back over, because we are going to end up wiping this. So just make sure you've got a backup of your config. The actual standard connector config, we're going to be making a new one of these as well, so again, just make a backup. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to just completely wipe the board. So if you just right click here and just click reset board, we're going to just click reset on that, and should just be left with a standard Arduino Mega 2560 with no MobiFlight firmware on there at all. So we're just going to click OK, and we're going to come out of that for a minute. We'll just leave that as it is. So we just want to make sure that when you look at the module, it's just a standard Arduino Mega with no firmware on it. The next thing we want to do is we want to go to our new directory here. I'm going to end up phasing out this FCU folder here and put everything all within this EFIS. Even if you're using just the FCU and you don't ever plan on using the EFIS, just still follow this directory, because it's all going to be the same. This firmware will be available to support just the FCU, just the EFIS, or one FCU and two EFIS displays. So whichever combination of products you're using, just follow this directory. And we're heading to the MobiFlight directory here. And what we want is to download this file, this file, this file, and this file, these four files here. This is just the standard fly-by-wire config, which has been slightly tweaked and improved. And there is a TOLIS profile for X-Plane there as well, but we're not going to get into that this video. That's a separate video. Okay, so what we need to do is just copy this directory here, and we want to download the directory. Okay, so we just want to go to download-directory.github.io, and we're just going to paste the folder in there and hit enter. And that will download us a zip file. Okay, so once that's downloaded, we'll get a zip file here. We just want to extract that there, and we can just delete the zip folder. Okay, so once we've got that extracted, we can go into here. We can see we've got the FCU and EFIS and MobiFlight. Again, we're going to ignore the TOLIS, and we can just delete the README for here, because we can use that on the website. So here now we have our four files here. Just to make life a bit easier, I'm just going to bring them back to the root directory, so we haven't got to keep going through that. I'm just going to put them in here, and I can then get rid of that. So yeah, these are the only four files we want here. We've got this board config, the fly-by-wire profile, the MobiFlight module config, and then the actual firmware itself. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is just make sure that you exit and close MobiFlight. Then what you want to do is open up the directory where MobiFlight sits. So the best way to do that is just go to your desktop where the icon is, right click and click open file location, and that will automatically take you to this directory here. Or it will be something along this line here, your user, then app data local, MobiFlight, and then MobiFlight connector. We're not going to be modifying anything here, it's just going to be some dropping and dragging. So the first thing we want to do is go to the boards folder here, and you can see I've already got it pasted here in my one, but you want to take this file, copy it and paste it into the boards folder there. So you should have the Arduino Mega board and then the Arduino Mega CAV board as well. Very important that that's in there. Then the next thing we're going to do is go down to the firmware folder here, and you guessed it, we're going to click MobiFlight Mega 241.hex, and we're just going to paste that in here, which I already have done. So you should have the Mobi Mega 241 hex and then the Mobi Mega CAV 241 hex, and that's it. You've just got to paste those two files into those two folders. So the board goes into boards and the firmware goes into firmware, and then that is it. We haven't got to do anything else. You can then just close that, and then we can of course open up MobiFlight. Okay, so now we can click MobiFlight modules. We've got this probably unknown here because we've reset it in the last one here. What we need to do now is just tell it what it is. So we're going to click this update firmware button here, and you should see that little down arrow, and then you guessed it, we're going to click the CAV version of the firmware. That will then update the firmware automatically. You haven't got to mess around with the X loader and trying to make sure it's all configured correctly. Here we'll just wait for this to finish uploading. Firmware update was successful. Fantastic. So now you then should see it says MobiFlight Mega CAV here, MobiFlight Mega CAV here, and a firmware version of 241 and the type of MobiFlight Mega CAV. As long as you see CAV, 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 and then 241 for this version, then you've guessed it, what will happen is every time I release a new version, you'll just have to drop the new firmware into that folder and then click update firmware. So yeah, as long as you've got that, that's all there. Now we have the standard thing here, but now we need to open up our config. Now this is where you may just think, oh, I can just open up my other config. No, you need to use this new config because I have made some slight changes to it. So we're going to click open. So once we've clicked open, we'll find our MobiFlight module config folder here, and you must use this one that has one FCU and two EFIS. It's really important that you do that, and I know that you will be worried about sort of some other pieces of hardware, but we'll cross that for now. So we're just going to open this one, and we'll be left with FCU, EFIS left, EFIS right. Now, if you only want to use the FCU, then you can remove these. You can just click remove device and remove device, and likewise, if you've only got one EFIS and it's the left or right respectively, you just delete the opposite one. But as long as you've got them this in this order, that is really important. It must be FCU, EFIS left, EFIS right in that order. Because I'm still working with the restrictions of not having this as a fully natural piece of hardware, some of the coding I've had to do means that the way that data is sent to it, they must be in this order, otherwise the wrong data will be sent to the wrong device and you will have some problems. So as long as you have FCU, EFIS left, EFIS right, and of course as long as lines is 1, 2 and 3, and then I would suggest you keep columns always at 16, and the address for the FCU is going to be 27, the left is going to be 20, and the right is going to be 23. Now that's not so much a problem, but I would definitely say try to match this as exactly as you can, because then you know that there's never going to be any problems with future changes to the code I may make. So FCU, EFIS left, EFIS right in that order, and with those settings you're going to be fine. Now we've opened that config, the next thing we need to do is upload that config to the board. And then we should see it looking exactly like this. No, I definitely did just push that. There we go. Now, that's all the uploading of the firmware done. Next thing we need to do is open our actual new config. So this is the updated one. Now it's probably at this point you're going to get this orphan serials found. So we just click that and we just click assign there. Done. That should never pop up again. Now you can see the config is the same but different. Instead of having LCD display 1 and 2, to make it a bit more easier, obviously we've now called it FCU EFIS left, EFIS left and EFIS right. Now I have made some slight changes to some of the logic in this just to fix a couple of bugs. Like I know there was some vertical speed problems, they've all now been sorted. And the EFIS left and the EFIS right are completely independent. Now for the fly-by-wire, they don't actually allow, well, the variables you can access, it's the same in the aircraft, it's mirrored. So although they are independent displays, for the fly-by-wire, you're not going to get the benefit of that, but say for the TOLIS, the other one that I mentioned, they are completely independent. Now, where would you click save? Because that's the board config that we've changed, so that's saved there. That's now going to fix any of that reassignment issues. It'll never pop up again. Now, if you have both EFISs plugged in, I know this video is being recorded before they're released, but if you do plan on getting them, when you click this test function, it's obviously going to run a load of nonsense data through. You'll see the FCU scroll from the left side to the right side with some data. You then should see the EFIS on the left change through some data and the EFIS on the right change with some data as it goes through. So you'll see that they are being controlled independently as well. And that is it. That is now ready to just click run, and that is the way you go. Now, if you had, as I mentioned earlier, some of your own configs here, where you go, oh, I don't want to add in all my hardware again and merge the configs. I have done a video already on merging configs. So go back and look at that. It is very simple of copy and pasting some data over, so as long as you've got that backup. But again, as I said, when you add other bits of hardware, just make sure that the FCU, EFIS left and EFIS right are always at the top. If you're not using the EFISs, again, you can delete them, or if you're only using one, you can delete the other, but just make sure that the pins aren't ever blocked. But yeah, so that is now ready to run, as I mentioned. And then please do check the merge video to bring your other hardware over as well. But this now going forward will be the last major change that I've had to make. But hopefully you can see now it's all contained within MobiFlight, and going forward you will just have to click update firmware, and you won't ever then have to change any of all the different board settings and configs and blah blah blah. So it's a bit of a pain. I appreciate that you've got to sort of restart the board, but it's a very trivial problem, and going forward it will mean that pushing updates out is much easier. You'll be able to just download the hex file, put it into that firmware folder, go to MobiFlight, click update, and then you've got the newest firmware. So going forward it will make your life a lot easier. So thanks very much for watching. If you do have any questions, please do get in contact, but hopefully this will make the whole process a lot easier going forward. So thanks again. Bye bye.